against India and got out for 55 and humiliated themselves in that finals. But this year, what do you think this Sri Lankan team has? To be honest,
look, I'm generally the last person who'll say anything slightly pessimistic about anyone or anything, but Sri Lanka and T20 cricket, Pawan, it almost feels like, and you look at that team, you pretty much know all of them. Like, it's a very familiar team. And I've been fortunate to go to Sri Lanka twice now in the last 3 years and not see them do too well in T20 cricket. But, their one-day cricket seems to be going well at a time. They don't always qualify for the big tournaments, sadly. But, they're the 2 games they played against Australia under odd circumstances, yes. But before the Champions Trophy or, and Test cricket, they'll have their moments. But it almost feels like it hasn't completely, the train hasn't completely left the station. It almost feels like T20 cricket is leaving them behind. It's like already left them. They're like, it's almost imagine them like the train's still there, slowly beginning to move away from the platform. And the Sri Lankan team is like running, but just not getting there. And it's at a crucial time because a lot of those players have played in a lot of T20 tournaments, or like for Sri Lanka, there is in World Cups or even Asia Cups. So after 2022, there's not much to look at the experience in that team, right? Like you still have Kusal Pereira playing. Dushmanta Chamira, I heard about how they kept him in cotton wool in 2022 when we went there, or I went there for the Test series. He didn't play the T20. He didn't play the Test series because they said they wanted him for the T20 World Cup. So they're always resting him for this or the other, but then he doesn't play. Yeah, so he's an interesting cricketer. But in terms of bowling, whether it's Patirana or Tikshana, Saranga is back, and Melala, the first time I saw him in 2022, I felt I became a big fan. He hasn't really done what I thought he would. I thought he'd be that next big Sri Lankan spinner, but he hasn't really risen to that level. I see my old friend Chamika Karunaratne, who I just refer to as Star Boy, is back. Like I just randomly happened in an elevator in Sri Lanka. I'll leave it at that. But so he's back. So there are these guys, and Dashun Shanaka is still around. So there are a couple of newish names that I haven't heard too much about. Mainly, it's like one of those kind of teams that you know what to expect from. But like that direct stat that you just mentioned there, 5 wins in the last 16. It kind of puts my analogy into perspective, right? Like the whole train leaving and them catching up. And at a time when a lot of these batting lineups are filled with players who can just hit a lot of sixes. Like look at how Australia have transitioned, they've transformed their approach to T20 cricket even in the last 6-7 months, where they've just decided we'll have these big guys, as if Vince McMahon has been booking world title things in the WWE in the early 90s, get all the big guys and give them free reign to go and hit big sixes. But Sri Lanka, one team, and Pakistan are not too far behind from them, who just feel like they're kind of still stuck playing T20 cricket from 5 years ago, if that makes sense, and they just haven't taken that next step up. And I don't know, I don't follow domestic cricket in Sri Lanka too well. I don't know if there are those guys emerging who can do that. Probably not.
But they're not giving the chance. That's the problem. There's so many good young players, but the problem is like they go back to experience because I think they don't want to experiment too much before the 2020 World Cup. So there are players that are in store. That's why they're experimenting them in the Zimbabwe series going on. But they are not including them in the 2020 World Cup because they haven't played much matches. So I think after the 2020 World Cup in 2026, they're going to take the the precautions, going to give them the chance to play or whatever, and then make these players like Kusal Pereira and Shanaka to retire. That's what I see what's going on, but they don't want to take that risk because right now we have a 2020 World Cup coming up and with the Asia Cup as well. So that's why the youngsters are not being included in the Asia Cup squad right now.
No, but there's an interesting point. I mean, if that is the case, or even if that's not the case, like the fact that it sounds like a very Sri Lankan thing to do in terms of Sri Lankan cricket. Because the only reason they were winning a lot in the 90s and the early 2000s, they were taking risks. They were the risk takers of the world. If you think about it, in terms of selection and gambles with Jayasurya opening or Kalu Vitarana opening, all those things that they did,
Exactly.
worked out because they were the risk takers. And I think the best way to describe the core of the Sri Lankan T20 team is they're getting a lot of very good 50 over cricketers to play T20 cricket, because I think Asalanka and Nisanka are terrific one day players. They're really good to watch. Asalanka, in particular, in the middle, the consistency that he's brought. And Nisanka does well in Test cricket as well. 100 he made in England. Was it last year? This year? Last year, wasn't it? Yeah, it's difficult to keep track. But it just feels like they constantly, and Pakistan are guilty of it as well, and we'll talk about Pakistan ahead later, but just a lot of good 50 over cricketers. It used to happen back in, even till 7-8 years ago, it was a formula that worked at times. India used to be guilty of that, getting all their best one-day players to play T20 cricket. I think it's moved on from that. So if there are these cricketers that you mentioned who are playing in Zimbabwe, there's no point waiting till the World Cup is over because you're also co-hosting the World Cup. If you want to make an impact, this is it.
And it's a best chance for Sri Lanka also to prove, like in the 2020 World Cup. So I don't know why they're waiting right now, but Bharat. But still, I also have questions like on the Sri Lankan team, especially. I think take some comments on the comment section. Rohani says Asalanka has been most promising at 5 consistently. Yes. But Bharat, I've heard this from Jared Kimber as well. I saw his video also, like Sri Lanka playing so many ODI matches. Like even I have the question mark as well. Like, yes, I understand they missed out. They had to go for qualifiers in the last ODI World Cup, and I feel like that could be a reason why they're trying to play more ODI cricket. But against Zimbabwe, you could have easily played 5 2020 matches instead of having 3 ODIs and 3 2020s. But why do you think like Sri Lanka is playing so many ODI? Because it's from a Sri Lankan, I also don't understand like why they're number 4 in the rankings right now. They don't have to be so worried about the next ODI World Cup. But what's in it with Sri Lanka and ODI cricket, to be honest? Like it's a huge question mark. Instead of playing 2020 matches when there's a 2020 World Cup or Cup coming up, they're playing 3 ODI matches against Zimbabwe and so many, even with Bangladesh as well. So I don't get it, to be honest.
Firstly, Sri Lanka play a lot against Bangladesh, don't they? It almost feels like every time we look, they're playing against each other. Maybe they're playing one in between the 2 Zimbabwe matches as well, who knows? But no, I mean, my stupidity aside, you're right. I guess formatting and scheduling always comes down to a lot more things than just that, right? Like whether it's about rankings or ratings. I'm sure there's more to it than that, but it does make, I think it's more in terms of selection though. Like, you can always try out in these kinds of bilateral ODI series which don't count for much. You can always try out, in that case, a few players you think are promising in T20 format, or young players, that is. You can just throw them into 50 over cricket as well, or you can do it the other way around as well. If you think they can be good at 2 formats, blood them into either of the formats, and you can still, because there are teams who will play an ODI series during when you're 6-7 months out from a T20 World Cup, but focus more on the T20 side of it, if that makes sense. So when we've seen all of that happen, or the other way around as well, I mean, England go to New Zealand for a few ODIs, I think, before the Ashes. There'll be a few test players there just to get acclimatized to the time zone, and it's not test cricket, but at least 50 over cricket. So just get used to this part of the world. So those things happen. So you can always mix and match. So it's not really about the format you play. It's more about how you play it, and more importantly, who plays in it for you. So I think, the big selection for Sri Lanka has been bringing back a few players that we all know about. So hopefully they do give those newer players a chance, because that's the Sri Lanka that we were used to. At least I was used to when I was growing up.
Also, I want to ask on Kamindu Mendis, Bharat, because I think Kamindu has been performing so well in Test cricket or whatever. Now he's been playing as all format. He's playing in 2020s as well, especially number 4. But I really don't know why they're changing his position from number 4, number 6. Even the first 2020, when I was watching between Sri Lanka versus Zimbabwe, he's playing at number 6. When this guy played for IPL, he played for Sunrisers Hyderabad, and he was given that number. I think he played at number 6, number 5. I can't really remember the position he played, but he did play until he got that injury. And then he didn't play the IPL anymore. He played 5 matches. But your thoughts on Kamindu Mendis in general?
Yeah, we were so excited this year because he made his test debut in 2022. So when Australia was there, so we got a first-hand view of him. But then he just went and won over the world in Test cricket. All those runs he made. And this year, like what earlier this year when we were there for the two tests, there was a lot of excitement around him. Didn't really do as well as we expected him to, but you're right. And then he just he's worked on his T20 game as well, right? He has the skills to play all formats, but he worked on his skills as well. But it still feels like when you look at him, he's still finding his feet in white ball cricket. Like, he's still figuring out what his main strengths are. Like, he has that power game. When he wants to, he can turn it on. But it can be challenging in a team like this, where, like I said, everybody's trying to kind of learn T20 cricket on the go, it feels like. And that's like an outside opinion. Maybe that's not the case. But when I look at the Sri Lankan team, it always feels like they're always trying to catch up. And not just as a team, but individually as well, rather than be setting the tone. I mean, like West Indies set the tone for T20 cricket. Then India and Australia have done that as well. England did that for a brief period. Now, clearly, their focus is elsewhere. So, and like I keep going back to Sri Lanka in the 90s, the reason is they set the tone for one-day cricket and then everybody else had to follow, right? Yeah. But that was a different era. Things have changed, circumstances have changed. Maybe Sri Lanka does not have the kind of power hitters you need to succeed in T20 cricket, or maybe they'll have to go through that 5-6 year period where they focus on developing them, and then we'll see Sri Lanka really emerge in 2030 as a great or a good T20 team. But you can only do that if you just stick to the same players over and over again who have failed you or who have not really taken this format to the next level. You'll just stay where you are, and the train will just go away.
Yeah. Also, I want to ask on Matisha Pathirana, because he's like a huge craze in CSK and India, and I don't know, he performs in IPL somehow or the other with Dhoni behind the stumps. He somehow keeps on delivering. He performs in the IPL. But when it comes to Sri Lanka cricket, he's a totally different cricketer. I do not know. He changed his action, if I'm not mistaken, 1 year back, and he was not effective in IPL this year because he changed that action a bit. But he's come back to his old action, and that's why he's been picked in the Asia Cup squad. But your thoughts on Matisha Pathirana, because he was not even scouted by the Sri Lankan selectors or whatever before. He was scouted by IPL and CSK scouts before getting into CSK, and that's where he got the attention of even the Sri Lanka cricket selectors. So your thoughts on Matisha Pathirana and the encounters that you had with him? Have you interviewed him also?
No, he by the time he started playing IPL, I had already moved out of India. So no, okay. I have seen him bowl, of course, I have, but I think maybe there are two solutions, right? I don't know if Sri Lanka can afford him. Get MS Dhoni somehow to be part of the camp, or if you can get a hologram of MS Dhoni where the Sri Lankan wicketkeeper is. Or the other thing is if you can get a special allowance or permission from the ICC and the ACC to let Pathirana play in wear yellow jersey when he's bowling, because that seems to bring out the best in him, right? But no, look, he still looks like a generational talent in T20 cricket, right? With this, the consistency he has in the depth, and or even in the middle phases where even that's another change I've seen in T20 cricket, where rather than the spinners bowling in the middle overs, often those kinds of fast bowlers with a lot of variety, the Yorkers, who break the game, right? Who come and break the game, take 2-3 wickets, or bowl a couple of tight overs. So Pathirana can bowl at different stages, and especially the 8th, 9th over onwards, he can just go and bowl out at times as well, the 4 overs. So you haven't seen the best of him in Sri Lanka, and it's again, I don't know whether it's the setup there, whether he and he's a unique story in that sense, right? Like you said, he was scouted elsewhere, and I remember a few years ago, MS Dhoni being asked at a press conference about him, and MS Dhoni had a say on how Sri Lanka should use him, and I did think. Then I heard that going, I wonder how that goes down in Sri Lanka. In former Indian captain and IPL captain is going to have a say on what a Sri Lankan cricketer's future is. But I mean, that's the way the world has moved on. But he's so young as well, right? He was scouted so young. That's the beauty of being scouted young or brought in young as a cricketer or as an athlete, you just always have that second or third chance to evolve and transform and mature and have more chapters in your career than someone who starts in their mid-20s or late 20s. So no, I don't think I don't think we definitely have not seen the best of Pathirana and Sri Lanka colors. So hopefully that happens, and probably give him more responsibility. Maybe say, like, you're the guy who takes us to that next level, and make the most of. So he might be young, but in some ways he's got more experience and wisdom of T20 cricket than some of these guys. Like, he plays in the IPL, he's worked so closely with MS Dhoni and Stephen Fleming, and when I think maybe others as well, like, whoever the senior players over there, were Faf was there and Bravo was there as bowling coach and all of that. So maybe it's time he brings all of that to him, and I think that can happen if he's. But with some players, you need that, right? He's young, but give him the responsibility, and I'm not saying make him captain, but say you're the leader of this bowling attack. Like, that's what, like, for someone like Arshdeep Singh, that's happened to him in Punjab. They've given him that freedom to be the leader of the bowling attack, and these young men just grow up even faster. So maybe that's what needs to be done. Something drastic needs to be done. Maybe the yellow jersey will work.
Yeah, but with Pathiran also, because I think he's very closely monitored by Lasith Malinga, and then Lasith Malinga told him to play red ball cricket, and he's been listening to Lasith Malinga by playing now first class cricket, which he has never done, because Dhoni has told him not to play first class cricket or red ball or whatever. But Lasith Malinga, he's been listening to Lasith Malinga. Lasith Malinga has been telling him to play first class cricket, because I think Malinga was evolved by playing first class cricket, and he was first noticed by test cricket, and then obviously he went into limited overs or whatever, and he stopped test cricket due to injuries or whatever. But both of them have that similar action or whatever, and Lasith Malinga suffered a lot with injuries or whatever, had a lot of setbacks, but still is very successful with IPL or whatever, with Mumbai Indians, and ended up picking up 170 wickets at the end of the day for MI and with IPL. So your thoughts on Pathiran, and especially his workload also, do you think like he can sustain to his 30s or whatever? How do you see with his action or whatever in general?
I think because of just the understanding around the biomechanics and just how technology has grown in terms of sports science and the SNC stuff, the strength and conditioning things. Fast bowlers will, like, I was speaking to a couple of the Australian fast bowlers the other day in Brisbane, and like both of them said, like, it's just prolonged so many careers, right? Like, there was a time, by the time you got to your 30s, if you're a fast bowler, you're already thinking of the end. But I think there's no reason, whatever action you bowl with, for you to have a short career with all the science around, and that's only going to get enhanced more and more and more. I think bowling actions and mechanics have also, now people who understand these things understand it better than they used to back in the day. I think, but also you wonder where the motivation for him to play more and more test cricket comes from as well, because even Malinga's era of Sri Lanka cricket is different to now. Sri Lanka don't play the amount of test cricket they used to back in the mid 2000s when Malinga made his debut. But he played 4 or 5 years of test cricket. In that period, they were playing quite a bit. They're playing everywhere. So that's not happening. So the motivation for what Pathirana will gain from playing a lot of red ball cricket, you wonder, when he's clearly got these special skills to be successful in the other formats. So, and in a country where, like I said earlier, they are prone to rest their fast bowlers for special formats, like Chamira I mentioned earlier. So it's happened before. So yeah, I mean, my little understanding of Sri Lankan cricket from my times that I've been there, I wouldn't see too much to gain from Pathirana if it is affecting his other format, his strength. There's nothing out of that because of just the amount of test cricket or lack thereof that Sri Lanka play these days.
Yeah, I just want to take some question from the YouTube from other people, and it's coming back to Indian cricket. Sorry for that, but it's a very interesting question. Ashwini here says, Bharat, I have a question. How India can use Bumrah services in future should he needs to quit one format of the game to